Hello guys, and welcome to this new video. This time we'll take a look at the box model and how to add styles to a web page. So this is the introduction to CSS. CSS means Cascading Style Sheets. We will start by adding a style to this page from within the page itself. So follow me. This is the page we created last week in the previous video. So I'll use the same one. Here inside the head, I'm going to add a tag, an element called style. And there you are, an opening tag for style and a closing tag for style. As usual, as every tag, we need an opening tag right here, and we'll also need a closing tag as I have added down here. Actually, Komodo did it on its own for me. So within style and style, I can add all the styles for the page using CSS, Cascading Style Sheets. So I'll start in this page by adding a style for images. So for CSS, I just write the name of the element to which I want to apply the style and some style tags. So I'll start with image. So I'll change every image in the page with img. And I'll start with opening a curly brace. This is CSS syntax. It's a little different from HTML, but it's still very simple. In our Google Drive folder, I'll open it right here, we have, I've shared with you also CSS syntax poster that you can use as a review for this. So here it is, and we'll see it in a second. This is not the one. Well, this one works, but I made one that looks a little bit better. Here is syntax poster. So CSS starts with an element name, as you can see here. This is the name of images, img, and then an opening curly brace. Then each of the attributes that we're going to modify, followed by a colon, the attribute value, and a semicolon. Every line needs to end with a semicolon. That is very important for it to work. And finally, at the end of the style for image, we close the curly brace. So everything between the opening curly brace and the closing curly brace would be the style for every img in the page. We can also use style for only some of the elements in the page, for only some of the imgs, using classes. We'll take a look at that in the following video. So here, I'm going to start by taking a look at the images and changing a few things for images in this page. I'll start by adding a border. Well, I'll start with the type of border. I'll define a solid border, followed by the width of the border. I'm going to use a 1 pixel border. And finally, the color. I'm going to make it blue in this case, using the name blue instead of color codes, which can be easier in this case because it's a simple color. I'll make it a little bit thicker so you can see it easier. This is a 5 pixel border. So here we are. In my image, you can see that I've added a border. And if I added another image to the page, it would use exactly the same style and apply the same border. So that's one of the important elements of the box model. The second one is that everything in a page, that is every element in the page is inside a box that has a border, has a margin, and margins are the distance between the edge of the image and other elements on the top, left, right, or bottom. So in this case, I'll add a margin for everything around the page that is 15 pixels. So there should be no element that is closer than 15 pixels. As you see, this text below the image moved a little bit because I changed the margin. And finally, there are the two other elements that you can find in a box are the padding, which is the distance between the border of the box and the element that's inside the box. In this case, I'll add a padding that is also 15 pixels, and there you go. You can see it right here between the border of my image and the border of my box. There is a white space. I'll make it clearer by adding the fourth element, the background color. So background color is the color behind the image. In this case, I am going to use a color code. I'll use a color code 333333, which is a gray color, a dark gray. I'll make it lighter. I'll add 666666, which is a lighter gray color. So this is the background. If there were no image, if the image didn't display, I would still have a background for my box. Let's take a look at it and see how that would work. I'm going to break this by changing the name of the file for the image. That should break it. It doesn't display. And there we are. Since I am modifying every image, I am going to change this, the width and the height, out of this tag and into my border. That would make every image be the same size. So I'm going to add a width of 150 pixels and the height that is automatic. There we are. So I did the exact same thing as I did before. I achieved the same result, but in this case I did it using the style tag and changing every image. So if I added a new image to my page, it would still use the same colors, background and width and height. This is the basic box model of HTML. So let's take a look at it quickly here. Every element in HTML is inside a box that has a border here. And let me use this to write here, border, that has a border, a margin here, the distance between this element and other elements, right here between the border and this paragraph of text. This is called the margin. And I can have margins for the top, for the bottom, for the right, or for the left. So here is my margin. There is a distance between the border and the border of the element and the element itself, this distance. This one is called the padding. And finally, there is a background that can have a color or an image. So far we haven't seen how to include an image, and we'll see that later in this term, in a later video, but so far we can have a background color. Those are the elements of the box. Everything in HTML, everything, paragraphs, lists, list items, everything is inside a box. Even the body itself is inside a box. A box that has a border, a padding, a background, and a background color or a background image, and a margin. And so let's change a few other elements of the page to play with CSS and understand more clearly how it works, and see also some of the other CSS elements that we have studied so far. So I'm going to change everything in the page. I'm going to change the body. Remember that the body contains everything in the page. Everything between this tag and this tag will be affected by the style that I apply to the body. So I'll start by defining a font. I'll add a font family, and families are groups of fonts. So I'll start, I like sans serif fonts, so I'll use Helvetica. And if it's a font name, I have to add it using quotation marks. In this case, this is called Helvetica, and it's a sans serif. So I'll add the sans serif tag in case the person who is viewing this page doesn't have the Helvetica font that I'm using. It will revert to sans serif and it will work in that computer too. Remember that the kind of font that you are able to display in your computer depends on the fonts that you have installed in your system. So I've changed the font family. I'm going to change the font color too for every element in the page. That tag is color, simply color. So I'm going to make every text in the page be a dark gray, not exactly black, but that dark gray we tried before, number 333333. So now every element in the page is that color, but see how links are still blue, because that's using the style for the A tag, and I would need to change that in order to change other things. Sorry. So far we've changed the font family, we've changed the color of the font, and now I'm going to change elements for the links. So that tag is A. I start with the name of the element I want to change, A, and a curly brace. I'm going to change the color, only the color, and I'm going to make it green. So links will be green. There you are. It's changed already. Every link in the page looks green. And I'm going to change the font. So links use a different font. I'm going to change the font family, and I'm going to use Times, a very popular serif font. Remember the difference between serif and sans serif is whether they have these little things at the end of the letters that we call, no wonder, serifs. So far, you should be able to give styles to different elements in the page. The only two elements here that we haven't added styles explicitly for are paragraphs and lists. But we added styles to images, styles to links, and styles to the body. We'll do one final thing that some designers recommend, and it's resetting styles. By default, when you create a page and when a browser reads a page, it adds certain default styles to every element. Sometimes you don't want that. For example, the body by default has a padding and has a margin. We can see that if we add a border to the body. I'm going to add a border to the body using border. It's going to be 1 pixel. It's going to be solid. And it's going to be black. There we are. So see, there's a small padding here, about 2 or 3 pixels, between the body and the border of the page. I do not want that. And there are also paddings here between letters and between paragraphs. I want to be able to set that everything myself. So when it means everything, we use the wildcard. The wildcard in many programming languages and in CSS also is the star, the asterisk. So if I write asterisk and define a style of padding 0 and margin 0, every element in the page is going to have margin 0 and padding 0. So now for my body, I can add a padding, and it will be only the padding that I have defined and not the padding or margin defined by default by those who invented CSS and HTML. So here we are. I'm going to add a margin that is 15 pixels. It seems to be a number that I like so far, but something broke up here. The UL element, the list, doesn't have any styles for padding and margin, so I'm going to add them here and make sure that things work well, and that these dots right here show up within the page and not here outside of the margin. So here we are. I'm going for the UL to add a padding of 5 pixels, and I'm going to add it only to the left. Padding left, and 5 seems to be too little, so I'm going to add 25. And see what happens. There we are. 25 pixels seems good. Here, in this case, it looks fine. So I'll leave it there, and I won't add anything else for that list element. But now I've moved the dots and they are inside my page. I don't want to have that border for the body. It was just to see that it had a padding. So I'll delete that, and now my page looks okay. It includes a padding and it includes a margin. Finally, I'll add one that you probably will want to add to your things. You can, since everything is a box, remember, the body is also a box, and every box has a background color. So I'm going to make the background for this page be a light gray, a very light gray. I'm going to use this same color I used for the background of the image. That's too dark, about 999999. There you are, that's light gray.